Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Tier 8 Soviet Premium Heavy Tank, the OBJ 259a. If you do enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like rating down below and subscribe, as it does help the channel. And yeah, the OBJ 259a, what's it like? Well, it's a pretty balanced heavy tank, if we're honest. It's basically a Tier 8 version of the OBJ 260. It's got really troll armour in the fact that sometimes it can be really quite nice, and sometimes it just gets butchered. And that's because this tank is all about the angles on its armour. You can see the weirdly V-shaped hull that this tank has, and then the really quite weird lower plate and the upper plate pike nose and stuff like that. It's all about the angles. So sometimes, in certain situations, your armour can be pretty damn good. And then in others, say when someone's shooting up at you, for example, your side armour then becomes poo, and your upper plate is pretty damn bouncy until someone starts looking at you like that, and then they can shoot you here really easily. But your turret front is pretty nice, and then you've got the cupola on top, though, that is a bit of a weak spot. But other than that, it's a pretty damn mobile heavy tank. It's got a really good top speed, but you don't really ever hit it. But you do go at like 45 kilometers an hour quite consistently, so you do hit a really good speed for a heavy tank. The gun is phenomenal. That is one of the big strengths of this tank. You've got fantastic shell velocity on your standard round. You've got really good penetration, really, for a Tier 8 heavy tank. Your DPM's pretty decent. Like, on the whole, it's a pretty balanced tank because it's got a fair few things that are good about it and a fair few things that are bad about it, right? And so far in my playthrough of it, and I think I've played like 16 or 17 games up until now, it's been quite a lot of fun. There's been games where it's been blowouts, and there's been games where I've felt like I can really hammer the enemy team, and that's because this gun is really good. Like I say, it's all about putting yourself in a position to flank, get the shots in on your enemies, and just keep this gun singing. Try not to be the focus of the attention too much, because you are definitely a support heavy as opposed to it being a frontline heavy, and you'll have a good time. It's also pretty damn nice at side scraping because of this V-shaped hull. You just have to be careful of that upper plate. But yeah, without further ado, let's go have a look at the 259A's statistics. So, the 259A, it's got a 900 horsepower engine with a 60 km/h top speed and a 12 km/h reverse speed with 15 horsepower per ton ratio. Now, 12 km/h reverse speed is really slow. It's really quite bad of having to back out of situations, because you can get yourselves into situations so quickly, it really does struggle to get back out of it. So you've got to bear in mind that if you try to reverse out of a situation, it's going to take you a wee while to get out of it. And like I say, you do have a 60 km/h top speed, but you generally, unless you are going downhill, do not hit it. You generally go about 40 to 45 kilometers an hour on average, and that's the speed you stick on even on flat, and you'll see that in some of the replays as well. You've got the 15 horsepower per ton ratio, which is this is not bad at all for a heavy tank, but like I say, you just don't get anywhere near that 60 kilometers an hour top speed. I mean, you could run something like the powertrain if you wanted to try and get quicker, but that's completely down to you. You've got 1500 hit points, which is a nice slab of hit points to use to trade with. You got 30 degrees a second hull rotation speed, which is pretty decent for a heavy tank. You don't turn quickly, but you don't turn slowly, which is pretty okay. You can buff that up with traction system or with clutch braking if you want to. It's down to you. You've got a 2.5 soft terrain, 1.6 on medium and 1.3 on firm. They're not the worst terrain resistances in the world for a heavy tank, but they are definitely something that you want to nerf down to be able to make sure that you can get towards the 60 km/h top speed, because like I say, it doesn't hit the 60 kph, but if you can help it out to get higher and higher, that's what you want to do. And the terrain resistances do hold it back a little bit on a lot of the grounds that it's going to be on, so definitely run off-road driving to get these down. Camo, well, no one cares, it's a heavy tank. You got 380 meters of view range, which is pretty standard for a Tier 8 heavy. That means you'll get it up to a decent amount with code optics, born leader, food, etc., which means you'll be able to spot for yourself. You got to 28 degrees a second turret rotation speed, which is slower than the hull rotation. That's what I meant to say. So you got to bear in mind that your turret does turn slower than the hull rotation, so you might want to help it with rapid aim if that bothers you. You've got 1.34 meters of accuracy during rotation, which isn't that great. You definitely want to help the gun out in that regard with snapshot and the gun stabilizer. 16 degrees of elevation, which isn't too bad. 6 degrees of elevation, which is actually not too bad for a Soviet design heavy tank, but it's still not great, and that means that you are going to struggle a little bit on a fair few ridge lines. Bear in mind that you don't have the best gun depression in the universe, but 6 is better than 5, right? But that's very Soviet-esque. You've got a 14.1 second reload, which is quite slow, but you can get that down to about 10 seconds. You've got 0.4 accuracy, which is definitely on the derpier side, with a 2.8 second aim time. With 4.56 accuracy during movement, which is atrocious. It's what you want to help with the gun stabilizer. This is why you have to run the gun stabilizer, because you want to run the gun stabilizer with with run and gun to knock that statistic down, because otherwise your gun bloom will be huge. 2.8 seconds aim time isn't the best either, but if you run all the gun stats and stuff, like all the gun perks and things like that to help the gun, your gun bloom isn't actually that bad, and you don't really feel this all that much. You have APCR, heat, and HE, with a 233 penetration on the standard APCR round, 285 on the heat round, and 61 on the HE. Penetration is really damn solid for a tier 8. It means that you're not really going to struggle against most things you're going to face. Even with 285 penetration on the heat round, that's pretty nice for facing some of the more heavily armoured tanks that you're going to see at tier 10. Obviously, you're not going to be going through them with ease, but at least you have a chance to go through. You got 420 damage, though, which is something that's a little bit out of the ordinary for a Soviet 122mm gun at tier 8. Usually they're about 390 or they're 440. This has 420, which is definitely quite nice, because it means that you tend to roll for between 400 and 440 quite often, and that is really, really quite nice for the 259a. The 420 is a little bit odd, but it feels pretty good. You've got 1400 meters a second shell velocity on the APCR, which is phenomenal. You've got 820 meters a second on the heat and 790 on the HE. Bear in mind that the heat round is so much slower than the APCR round. You've got to adjust for that when you're firing at range if you decide to load your heat round, because firing at distance is really not a problem for this tank with the APCR, because it really is beautiful. But if you switch to the heat round, you just got to bear in mind that, yeah, it does go a lot slower. And in terms of the bonuses, you've got 115% on tank XP bonus and 150% silver bonus. So, you know, a 50% silver bonus, which is on the low end for silver bonuses at tier 8 in terms of premium heavies. So, yeah, that's the statistics of the tank. And, like I say, the gun is what is nice about this tank. I mean, it doesn't look too good on paper, but when you actually play it, it feels quite nice. The mobility, like I say, looks really good on paper, but it doesn't really hit that top speed. But you can still use it to really good effect for a heavy tank like this. And yeah, let's go have a look at the armour for this tank. So as you can see, look, you've got 260 on that turret front. And this is different to the tank's GG model, because it has 120 upper plate and 110 on the lower. Okay, so on the PC tank's GG model for this, it has 110 on the upper plate and 100 on the lower plate. But what I want to do is show you basically the angles. That's the word. The angles on this tank. So bear in mind, like I say here, this is 110, whereas ours is 120. So add like 10 millimeters of thickness to the effective armor probably. And this is 110 for us, whereas it's 100 for them. But what I want to show you, I'm not showing you the effectiveness here. By the way, the turret is exactly the same as on PC for the 259a. What I'm showing you is the angles, okay? That's the whole point of showing you this section here. So you can see the lower plate is pretty easy to pen when flat on, but the upper plate, especially on the extreme angles, is a lot harder to pen. It gets easier to pen when you get towards this section here, but it depends. If you're facing other tier 8s, tier 7s, tier 6s, they're really going to struggle to go through your upper plate. Tier 9s might struggle, but as soon as they're firing premium, same as tier 10s, they're going straight through your upper plate if they shoot towards the lower plate section here. But they've got to be careful, because this is an auto ricochet. Because of that V-shaped hull, that is a bait. If they shoot for the lower plate and hit these sections instead, they will ricochet. Something you got to be very, very careful of. But like I say, this is where I'm saying about the angles, and this tank is really weird. That sometimes you feel like your armor's working quite effectively, but actually the armor decides that no, I don't think I'm going to work. And that's because you turn it like that, and you can see angling really negates your armor. So you're heading straight on, you turn ever so slightly like that, and look how easy your upper plate becomes comes to pen, all of a sudden your upper plate becomes absolute Swiss cheese. And that is sad for the 259A, which is where I say that the angles on this tank make the armour a bit of a pain at times, because you're like, oh yeah, I'm bouncing stuff. Oh no, I'm not anymore, as they pen there, or they pen there. And also, like I say, the side section of the lower plate as well becomes far easier. It is pretty good at side scraping though, as you can see here. As long as they avoid hitting this section here, they will ricochet off that lower section of the V hull quite easily. You will bounce a lot while trying to side scrape, but this is where trying to shoot, when people start to shoot up at you as well, your lower plate and stuff like that becomes a bit awkward. And especially, like I say, if you're side scraping and someone ends up shooting up at you, it can be quite awkward as well, where they do catch shots here. But you can see the turret front is really, really good. And like I say, the PC version of the turret front is exactly the same as our turret front. And it is really, really good. You got 270, 260 effective, which means tier 10 premium rounds can go through the front of your turret if they shoot you right next to the gun mantlet. You've got to be very careful of that. But if you're using your full extent of your gun depression on a ridgeline, that turret front is really, really good. Like I say, you just got to be careful of those shots catching that spot right there next to the gun mantlet. And you can see the big point on top of the tank as well, that if someone's shooting at you, if you're struggling to pen this thing and it's hull down, it's covering its hull, shoot for the cupola, because just look how easy it is to actually pen that cupola on it. And the little cupola at the back is pennable, but it's a lot harder to hit. That cupola there is very easy to hit. So, you know, that is a weak spot for the tank. Bear that in mind, that can get hit quite easily, especially if you're only showing your turret. It will get destroyed. So, yeah, that's the armour of the 259A. Let's go have a look at what we've run in terms of equipment and commander setup. So, in terms of equipment and the commander, I'll run the advanced loader, the gun stabilizer, and optics. Optics to be able to spot for myself again, because I don't want to be blind. I want to be able to actually spot for myself, especially if you get maps like Proc or Mali, because getting out spotted will be your death. The gun stabilizer, because like I said, the gun is derpy on paper, and if you don't help it, it will be derpy. But if you do help it with the gun perks and the gun stabilizer, it becomes really, really quite nice. And the advanced loader, because you want to make your DPM better as always. And then in terms of a crew, I have put it in the IS-22, or the IS Desmond 22. Let's put it into the 259A. And in terms of a crew, I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Situational Awareness, Track Mechanic, Off-Road Driving, Run and Gun, Snapshot, Steady Aim. These 3 gun perks to make sure that the gun is as good as humanly possible, because like I say, it is fairly derpy on paper. I do want to help it out. Off-road driving to make sure that I can actually get somewhere near my 60km/h top speed if I can. I mean, you generally won't unless you're going downhill, but instead of going at like 40 kilometers an hour, the off-road driving, you're probably going closer to 44, 45. So every little helps, right, in terms of the mobility. The track mechanic, because you are brawling heavy, and that gets your tracks back on. And like I say, these 5 you're always going to take on a World War II tank in general. So let's have a look at the 259A with it fully equipped. So we have got better ground resistances, as you see, 1.89 on soft, 1.34 on medium, 1.2 on firm. Like I said, they've got way better, because that was 2.5, for example. You got 486 meters of view range, which is really quite nice. It means you won't struggle to spot for yourself. You've got 30.41 degree a second turret rotation speed, which has actually got slightly better now than your hull rotation, which is good. You've got a 10.28 second reload, which is at 2.5k average damage per minute, which, let's say, it's not too bad, not too bad. You've got 0.32 accuracy at 100 meters, which is a lot better than the 0.4. Your accuracy during movement is 2.6 now, way down from the 4.5 it was before that. So that makes that statistic way better, because of the food, because of the run and gun, because of Born Leader, because of gun stabilizer. That has got to the point where it's not good, but it's just not horrific like it was. And 0.71 accuracy during rotation on the turret is really quite decent for a heavy tank like this, and you've got that down really quite low because of snapshot and Born Leader, gun stabilizer, etc, etc. You got yourself down to a 2.58 second reload as well. Sorry, not 2.5, that would be OP. 2.5 second aim time, sorry, which, again, isn't horrific, but it's not good, right? But you don't feel it too much, because the gun bloom has been significantly knocked down because of all the statistics and stuff, all the perks, gun stabilizer, equipment, etc, that we've taken to make it better. But yeah, that's the Object 259a. Like I say, that's how I equip it and stuff. I just think it's a pretty balanced heavy tank because it has a fair few weak spots, but it also has a fair few good points. And the main good points for this tank are its mobility and its gun, because its gun is great. And it does look like that Object 260, but down at tier 8. And I have pretty much enjoyed playing it. Is it worth the money that it's currently costing you, which is 8,800? Well, that's completely down to you. That's down to how you think it looks, how you think you might enjoy the tank. It completely down to your playstyle and how you think this tank will feel in your hands, pretty much. I mean, I'd always say wait for discounts, because discounts are the way forward for anything in this game. Obviously, it means you can pick up more stuff for cheaper. So yeah, that's the Object 259a. Let's take you over to the replays where you can watch it in action for yourself and see how this tank handles. So as always, everybody, I will see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Object 259a, and this first game is a fairly average game really for what happens when you put yourself in a pretty decent position, but then get just a bit overwhelmed by things that you can't really deal with. And this first game, we are bottom tier, which is going to be a bit of a theme for this video, because actually, I think all 4 of the replays I've got for this video are all bottom tier, which is not representative of the matchmaking I've been getting, if I'm totally honest. My matchmaking has been pretty damn good. I think these were 4 of the 6 out of the actual 18 games I've played where I was bottom tier. So, yeah, we're bottom tier, which is naturally the best thing for you guys to be seeing anyway, because you're going to be seeing it in its worst environment. And we're on Swamp. And on Swamp, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and use the mobility of the tank to get to C8, or C7 I should say, and then see if I can spot the people on the cross up the 0 line. Because I think, well, you know, the 259a is a pretty damn mobile heavy tank. I'm going to see if I can use my good mobility to my advantage and see if I can use this 486 metres of view range to be able to spot the enemy team crossing. But unfortunately, you are seeing here that the 259a does have that 60 km/h top speed. It doesn't really get anywhere near it. We end up spotting the T-34-2 as he goes up the hill. We get a nice shot into him, just trying to see if we can get a shot at him. Somebody shoots from over there, and we do not see it. Then we get spotted by the T-54 from the top of the hill, and oh dear. And you can see 12 km/h reverse speed is not very good, but the gun handling is pretty damn nice at times, as we get the shot straight through the cupola of that T-54. But he starts absolutely butchering our armour, because like I say, the armour on this tank is pretty decent, but as soon as people start firing fairly high pen rounds, like, you know, 270 plus pen, they do start to go through your armour pretty easily, and you do start to get shredded. And as soon as you get against tier 9 and 10 premium rounds especially, your armour becomes poo-poo, and yeah, you get shredded. But that's no different for any other tier 8 heavy tank, if we're totally honest. So we managed to get rid of the T-34 too. Now there's a T-28 Prot crossing. I'm like, oh goodness me, there's a T-28 Prot. We managed to snap the shot into his side. Let's say the gun handling on this tank, the gun handling is pretty good. And you are seeing that, because again, we snapped it straight in. We've loaded heat to go after this Type 5 heavies. Well, to go after this Type 5 heavy, because we can't pen him otherwise. It was a bit of a silly poke, really, because I was never going to pen it from that sort of angle, and he was always going to do some significant damage to me because of his gun. We do get the heat round though, straight through the side of his turret, which damages his ammo rack. Just waiting for the reload, because we want to try and get as much as we can into this guy while he's distracted. We wait a little bit too long though with the shot, and unfortunately we end up ricocheting, which is really quite sad. But he's looking for a shot at us. He shoots at something behind us. In fact, he killed the Panzer. He must have penned the Panzerjäger, that poor Panzerjäger, and he got rid of him. We get the shot through his cheek with the 285 pen heat round, because like I say, the heat round is pretty damn good, and you'll be able to pen most things you're going to struggle to face penetration-wise with your standard round, which is nice. We get a shot straight to the T-54, which damages his ammo rack, but unfortunately he's firing heat now, which means that he can absolutely butcher our poor armour. I'm just keeping myself wiggling to make it as hard as possible for that T-54 to hit me, but sadly the Type 5 Heavy comes after us, and that game was a defeat. But in terms of what we got, fairly average, 2.9k damage, 730 base XP on a defeat, and that was, yeah, just a fairly average game for when you put yourself in a position that can be effective, but at the same time, if you get caught out, is not good. And because of the fact that, well, we used our good mobility to get into the position, but we just couldn't get out. We were doomed from the moment we were in it. It was like, oh no, that's a Type 5 Heavy, that's a T-54 medium tank above us, I should say. We're doomed. We're doomed. and, you know, that's what happened. We died. But like I say, it's, you know, fairly average game damage-wise there against some of the tier 10s. And we're on to the second replay, and the second replay is, again, fairly heavily tier 10. And what we're going to do is use our decent mobility again to put ourselves in a good position to get shots at people that try and cross this A-line, which will cut them off and get ourselves some spotting. Something just got absolutely deleted, and we did not get the assistance there, which is sad. Or should I say, I saw like 1,000 hit points disappear. I think it was the Chrysler that lost that 1,000 hit points, but we didn't get any of the assistance for it somehow. But we are spotting the T110E4, who has not managed to make that cross unmolested, which is exactly why you watch this, which is why this position is so good in World War II for countering that push. The Object 259a on the opposition team's made a good push himself, and he managed to get a shot into us, but because of where we are, we completely counter the push he's made, which the position he's taken is a pretty decent position. It completely cuts off our guys who are trying to push up the 0 line, but sadly for him, if you've got a tank where I am, we can just completely counter the 259A, and we shut down that guy with a shot through the cupola. And you see there, we're shooting at our own armor profile. He had no problem going through us, and we went through his cupola no problem, because the cupola is fairly easy to hit on this turret. It's something you've got to be very, very careful of. You've got to keep yourself wiggling. We load HE here to get rid of that building. We get rid of that building. I'm going to go for the APCR, because I wanted to make it so that I could shoot through that building and get a shot at the E4. But before we get to that position of being reloaded to get the shot into the E4, he gets wrecked by our team that had pushed aggressively up the 0 line. So what we're going to do now is boost our view range with food so that we're making it even better, so that we can devalue people's camos if they're sitting at the back, because people do like to sit at the back at B1 on this map, but it doesn't seem that anyone is there. And we're going to push up into the middle to see if we can find anybody else over here. We know there's a Vengeance. We didn't get spotted making this cross, which makes me doubt that there's anything at C1, because I was very certain that we would have been spotted otherwise. We get spotted by the Vengeance, who is trying to make his way out. We thought he might drive out enough to give us a shot, but we don't quite find it. And now we're going to push aggressively towards this medium tank, which is a Barask that's sat on the corner at E3. There's an Emil with us and a Turan, which is good, because that means we've got some good solid backup. The Barask has clearly been caught on the hop. He had no idea that was coming. And yeah, we end up pushing up to this rock, because we see the Turan. Now, we've missed something that's happened on the map. We've missed it at this point, and I'm trying to look for a shot at the leopard. I'm like, why am I detected? Is it that Turan? What's going on? Why am I detected? Oh, there's a Jagdpanther too. Yeah, look at your map, you moron. There's a Jagdpanther too. You can see I'm wiggling, going, oh, come on, just pay attention. And, okay, that right there is an invisible wall. And I was a bit perplexed at that invisible wall, because I ended up riding my tank up into thin air, and that gave the Jagdpanther a shot at my underside. But thankfully, because of the weird angles on the underside of this tank, it ended up missing. We've loaded heat to try and go through his superstructure, but we're going to wait for him to turn, because he has to turn for the guys that are coming up on his right or left, whichever way. And yeah, we get that heat shell through. You can see I'm going to test the invisible wall here. I'm not touching anything. Look, my tank just starts riding up. I'm like, I did not know that was there. That's really irritating, because what I was trying to do originally against the Jagdpanther was push directly up to that rock in front of me, and then I could try and side scrape off it, but I couldn't, because invisible walls. Really odd place for an invisible wall, that. So we're up to 2.4k damage with 1100 assistance, and I'm going to try my best to get some more damage off here. And we try and shut down the Cobra, because we want to get rid of the guns in the game. And unfortunately, the Cobra pulled back just in time to get away. We're now waiting for the reload to try and get the kill on the Leopard PTA, but unfortunately he ends up getting shut down by the T-54 before we get a chance to reload. So now we've got to try and advance behind the enemy team. I mean, it's 7-6, it's still fairly equal, but they're not the healthiest people in the universe. So I want to get rid of this Cobra, and I'm going to RBRT, and I'm trying to lock on before he gets a shot at me, but sadly, it just didn't lock on, and therefore we end up taking a hit from the Cobra. It was a bit of a risky push, really, because that could have backfired so easily, but we get away with it. Now there's a Rhinoceronte in front of us. We try and go for the side shot, but the gun derps and hits the turret front, which means we ricochet, which is, yeah, this is where the derpy gun can come into effect a little bit. But you see him, really, with the gun handling, when you're running, oh, that was bad luck. Wait, you see him with the gun handling where we're on the move, and it's really not that bad in terms of bloom, and that's because we've got all of the gun perks to help us. So we're driving through, and it's like, oh no, that's a Rhinoceronte. Oh, I didn't expect him to just drive out in front of us, but we managed to get the shot straight through his side, and just waiting on the reload, put the shot into his side, hug the dead Valor that's in front of us to make it as hard as possible for him to get a shot at us, and he gets shut down by the 430 version 2, and finished the game with a fairly average total for the 259A again, which is a pretty decent total actually in a bottom tier matchup. We finished with 3 kills, 3.3k damage, 1100 assistance, the second class with 1780 base XP, a pretty decent game there for the 259A, and what is not a very good matchup. And we're on to the third replay, and the third replay is this map, Overlord. And what's the one thing you don't do on Overlord, kids? I want to hear you say it. Say it for me, kids. Say it for me. Don't go to the beach. Do not go to the beach on Overlord, because it leaves you wide open to death. And there's not much you can do. If the enemy team wins the top end of Overlord, and most of your team's on the beach, great driving, you are absolutely boned. There's no two ways about it. You are boned, because basically you have very limited ways of firing back up at the people on top of the beach, and on top of the cliffs, I should say, while you're on the beach. And the people on the cliffs can farm at you with pure impunity, and you will struggle to get off the beach because they have multiple ways of shooting you while you try to climb up it. It is such a bad place to go on Overlord, because it just does not go well 90% of the time. Does that mean it goes badly all the time? Can you win if you go to the beach? Of course you can. If the enemy team throws it, of course you can win. But 90% of the time, it's just not going to go well, generally. So we've come to the flank where I'm more likely to go in a heavy tank, and that is this 9 line. We've managed to get a shot into the Panzerjäger, just looking for a shot into the Terran, because every shot into this Terran will be glorious, because Terran's a pain in the ass and you want to get rid of the Terran. So we got one shot into him, and once again, he's distracted with the light tank. We are trying our best just to keep farming this Terran. I want to get rid of the Terran, because the Terran, if he gets unspotted, will be a pain to spot, and he will just delete us, because that's what Terrans do. The AVRE, God bless you AVRE for deleting the Terran, gets rid of him, and now we've got shots towards the Batchat 15558. We were just seeing the Barras there, but I'm thinking, no, I want shots at the 15558 if I can. Let's get rid of this artillery piece, because they can be a little bit frustrating. We're just waiting for the aim time, put the shot straight in for 440, and you're seeing again, if you get the gun aimed in, it's a pretty damn nice gun. Just looking for more shots at this Batchat on 5558. He is currently moving into position. We can't quite see him, but can we get a shot around the building? That is a pixel shot, and it flies in again. Like I say, this gun, get your shots fully aimed. It will hit most of the shots you're going to ask it to. We can see the 53-55. I'm thinking, do I kill the RT? No, I want to get a shot into the Barask. Why do I go for the shot to the Barask instead of the 53-55? Because I felt like the 53-55 was going to die to my team. And again, the Barask being such a good tank that it is, I wanted to try and track him, essentially. If I shot him and tracked him there, he would have been as dead as a dodo. But we didn't track it, we just penned it. But again, it's getting damage into a tank that is speedy, has really good stealth, and would have been a bit of a difficult one to spot if he decided to, you know, play it cautiously. So we come against this Chrysler K, and unfortunately there, we ricochet off his side because we didn't really aim it very well. We just hull down against him. I'm thinking, haha, try and pen me now. But he fires an APCR round straight through the cupola. And again, that's the problem when you're hull down. That cupola is very, very easy to pen. And if you give people the opportunity to hit that cupola, they will. So you've got to keep yourself wiggling. Make it as hard as possible to give them a free shot into the cupola. And just, yeah, again, keep wiggling. Don't expose yourself for too long. So this is where Overlord becomes a turkey shoot. Because they're on the beach. They've won the beach against, like, 2 people. And thus, we are now on the cliffs, coming after them. And this is a free farm. So we get a shot into the back of the AVRE, because once again, we want to get rid of the AVRE. Good night, Mr. AVRE, because get out of my game. If he just turns to faces, he could just delete us instantly. So we get rid of the AVRE there. And we're just firing on reload at every point. So we're at 4k damage. We see the 268 version 5, but he's behind the ridgeline. There's the T28 down on the beach. And once again, we can get free shots at him very, very easily. And this is where you just don't go to the beach. You just don't do it. Don't do it, kids. I know it's tempting. Do not go to the beach, because it's the easiest thing to counter in the universe. And it's the easiest way to lose a game, pretty much, on Overlord. So we're up to 4.9k damage. Can we get the kill here on the 28, and unfortunately, just as we pull the trigger, we miss. And I'm going to slide down now onto the beach to try and get after the Barask. But we take it a very dodgy way there, and unfortunately, we hit the cliffside on the left as we were sliding down. And we ended up losing the rest of our hit points pretty much, damage our engine, but it didn't matter because we didn't get anywhere near the Barask because we did cap. And we finished the game with the epic victory, 1 kill, 4.9k damage, the 1793 base XP, the high caliber Confederate second class, 1773 base XP, sorry. Pretty damn good game there for the 259a on Overlord. That was probably the second best game I had in this tank. And we are on to the 4th replay of this video, the final replay of it. And we are on to Ghost Town, bottom tier again. And this is probably the best game I've had in the tank so far. And we are on a map that's pretty good for it, because it's, you know, it's a small map. It helps us to get around as a heavy tank. But again, the matchmaking isn't the best. We are bottom tier once again. And we are going to go to the middle. So what I want to do from the middle, from the position at E7, is shoot across the open middle ground, because if people do cross, you can get free shots. So if someone decides to cross diagonally along the F5 position, you can get free shots at them as they try and get to the corner at E4. Plus, people do tend to go hull down over here, and you can try it. So we get up on top of the ridge, just aiming. There goes the 4005. And we get a free shot into the 4005. That's where that position is quite nice to take, because you do get those free shots, and you can, well, you get free damage. Our 4005 is in the open, so we see their 4005 is pushed quite aggressively to get after ours, and, well, they end up trading shots. But we end up tracking this guy, just waiting on the reload. Can we get another shot in before he gets around the corner? We do. And again, you're seeing the nice rolls that we get, because 420 alpha is a nice alpha to have for this tank. And you generally, like I say, between 400 to 440, generally. Obviously, you can roll for less than that, and you can roll for more than that. But on average, that's what it seemed to be consistently going for. And it's definitely nice in the 390 for that, because 390, obviously, sometimes you'll see like 340 rolls, 350 rolls, and like 420s, 430s is probably the highest you'll see on average. So we're now going to push the tempo again. We're going to try and see if we can get after the tank that was on our left. But as we poke around the corner, we find a T-77. We unfortunately ricochet off his upper plate as we were going for a shot at his turret. But we're now going to side scrape off while we try and get shots into his turret. Now, he ended up firing his clip. And I'm like, I think this guy's fired his whole clip. You know what? Let's just make sure that we're going to hit this guy. Because before he's reloaded, we should hopefully be able to take most of his hit points, if not all. So we're just going to wait on our reload, make sure that we can try and farm this guy. And this is where that T-77 should have run away, because we're just getting a free farm of him now. He's actually not spotting us, because we probably killed his commander there. Or, well, to be fair, we are firing through the bush, and he's probably not kitted himself out for spotting, and therefore he could not see me, and we farm him. We're now waiting on the reload to try and get the shot into the Jagdpanther 2, but the Jagdpanther 2 ends up getting shot down by the IS Desmond 22. And we're going to see if we can find some shots now into the heavy tanks over here. Now, we're going to push quite aggressively to see if we can get shots into the side of these guys, because they haven't really reacted to the IS Desmond 22 that's with me. And if they've not reacted to come after this guy, maybe I can get some free shots into their sides, into their back. So we find the Tortoise, the M103, go for the shot into the back of the M103, and, of course, off the back of his turret, it hits the extreme angle and ricochets, because RNG, folks, it giveth and it taketh. So we're going to go for the shot into the side of his turret yet again, which we get straight in. I was hoping maybe Amarak. We see a 268 version 5, and I'm like, oh, goodness me. But, again, the Cupola is easy to hit, easy to pen. But if they have bad RNG, they might hit the turret front, and you can still ricochet something like a 268 version 5. Like I say, this tank is pretty damn nice hull down. And you just got to be careful of the obvious weak spots, is essentially the way it is. And yeah, the MBTB ends up missing the shot at us, and what I'm realising is I'm in a bad position there on that slope, so I need to get closer to this wall on my right, so therefore I'm safe from them. But the MBTBs have basically run away from us, and I was like, okay, if you're going to run away from me, I'm going to push and try and get you guys from over here. So we're finding the lower plate here of the MBTB, slap the shot in, and we just got to play it patient and wait for our reload, not expose ourselves too early, because obviously that will be feeding them free damage. So we poke out around the corner, get a shot into the lower plate. The MBTB ends up firing heat straight through the front of our turret, and you're seeing there the position where they can do that. Like I say, they can do it. We're just looking for the weak spot, and I was thinking, actually, I don't think 230 pen can go reliably through the MBTB's weak spot on the turret, because I think it's about 240, so I decided to wait for his lower plate to be exposed, and we get the shot in there. We see his lower plate again, we get the shot straight to the lower plate of the MBTB. Easy shots, because he's making it exceptionally easy for us. He ends up shooting the guy next to us, so while he's fired, let's take the opportunity. We go for the shot on the move into the lower plate, and it looked like it hit the lower plate and ricocheted. It's like, oh, thanks, game. Okay. So we're going to go after the other MBTB. It's like, hello, friend. He puts a shot into us. We try and track and pen him, but unfortunately, we don't actually pen him. We only tracked him. But he's about to start getting farmed by our team, which is glorious. I'm thinking, oh, maybe I can get the kill. Come on, come on, come on. Ah. And unfortunately, we don't quite get the kill, but we do get all the assistance on that guy. Finish the game with the 5.1k damage, the victory, the 1289 assistance, ace tanker sniper high caliber, with the 2.2k base XP. A pretty damn nice game there for the 259a, which is a pretty damn decent Soviet tier 8 heavy tank. I think I probably would prefer the Kirovets 1, but I do think this is a good competitor to it, and it's a slightly different playstyle realistically. But it's definitely a fun tank to play. It can hold its own in a lot of different matchups, and yeah, it's totally down to you whether it's worth it. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!